Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee, which is a committee of the rural areas for the Comox Valley Regional District. And we're just here to be doing our business today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nations. We're going to plow right into it. We got a pretty big schedule today. We have some delegations here. I think our first delegation will be Suzanne Sawyer, Catherine Davison from the Macaulay Road and Area Neighborhood Association. They're here to present information regarding a request for action and implementation of a connecting one-spot trails and other trails for use in emergency evacuation situations. It's moved and I'll second it on receipt. So without any further ado, if I didn't mention Rick's here too, so Rick's the security detail. He's you got to press that little button, yeah, and then lift it up to your.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
There you go.
For having us here. My name is Richard Skrjala. I'm one of the board members from Macaulay Road and Neighbors Association, and I'm just here to introduce Catherine. She's doing all the legwork. She's going to be presented to us. So without further ado, thank you again for having us, and Catherine Davison.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. So good morning. Our neighborhood association was formed in 2021 to support improvements to our area. We use MARANA as an acronym, and we work closely with our community by advocating to different agencies, local and regional levels of government, and we pay attention to provincial legislative requirements and policies. We care about our local community and our safety and security issues. So our presentation will briefly cover our association's background, our work to date, and our present situation, and our ask to the CVRD directors. The picture on the right was taken during our BC Trails Day walk at the One Spot North Trail on June 1st. Our present over this. Okay, this is our. These are our purposes. We've met with Director Grieve, CVRD staff, MOTI staff, ICBC, and the RCMP, and written to Ministers of Transportation and Infrastructure on these issues. Several of our members joined the Comox Valley Citizens on Patrol and conduct speed watch. We received over $8,000 in grant funding from the Vision Zero Road Safety Program, which was assigned to the CVRD for Macaulay Heights parking access improvements. This year, we received third place prize in the Small Planet Earth Day program for our Clean the Mac event. We also received several small rural community grants. Macaulay Road is in the north end of Area C. Our area is bordered by Ham Road, the Inland Highway, Highway 19A, and the Oyster River. It starts at Ham Road and is 13 kilometers to the end of the road in a horseshoe shape. With the branch of Doyle Road, it is approximately 17 kilometers long of Class C rural road. Doyle Road heads straight up to the Oyster River. We have 5 residential subdivisions using Macaulay Road with only one way in and one way out for public use every day. And these subdivisions have no secondary exit, which is now required by the official community plan. Our concerns have been the lack of road access for residents, and especially in emergencies when our road is blocked. These are some statistics that we have. The population statistics was from the 2021 census of those reported, and it was provided by BC Stats. That's more than 4 times the population of Sayward, BC. These subdivisions are in heavily forested areas between agricultural lands. In addition, we have an unknown number of people living in RVs. This is a 2019 CVRD map showing population density. This was for the waste management consultations. The blue arrow shows the point to where there is no secondary access. Our evacuation plan suggests we walk through hayfields to get to Ham Road, or we could be directed through private property, lock gates, and connecting eventually to the Inland Island Highway, which is a distance of approximately 8 kilometers on unmaintained private roads. Our position is that the current emergency evacuation plans are not adequate nor safe for this area's population. We've had experts state there isn't the time and that this is a safety issue to be able to evacuate through those routes. If a wildfire starts from the Bear Creek Park area and moves up quickly over the road, those in the north area need to be notified and evacuated through the private driveways and gates. This is physically impossible with this population. Also, the number of people living in RVs is a tremendous fire hazard. In September at the park at Crown Isle, a tiny home burned in a wooded area with someone inside. The address was unknown and access couldn't be reached. This could happen throughout our area. We raised concerns with CVRD staff who responded that these situations could take years to resolve. These RV sites are in violation of our laws and bylaws. Meanwhile, our tax-paying residents live with these fire hazards, these unregulated hydro hookups, propane tanks, and questionable septic systems. This is a huge risk to those living in the RVs and to our other area residents. And we don't need to remind you that Vancouver Island has been in drought stage 5 for the past few years, and with all these private wells, area water resources are scarce. These unregulated living arrangements need to be actions, the timelines adhere to, and that referrals to other agencies such as BC Hydro and Island Health be followed up on. Our current emergency evacuation guidelines date from 2013. In September 2021, Miranda requested that they be reviewed and updated. We made 2 other presentations to this committee on road access and safety issues. The feasibility study and planning committee was announced in April of 2022. And these were the motions that were made during those meetings. Okay. From April to early September, we understood that a feasibility study would take place. In September, a CVRD staff report suggested that this planning committee was under the purview of MOTI. We understand that CVRD wrote to MOTI that MOTI's planning guidelines suggest that new roadway projects can be undertaken when there is a safety, mobility, or reliability issue identified. And MOTI writes that new roads happen through the subdivision process and that they support the CVRD planning processes. So this issue has been bounced back and forth between MOTI and the CVRD. So our present situation, Director Grieve attended the April 2023 meeting that we arranged with MOTI staff, and we discussed possible additional access routes. The One Spot North Trail completion to Ham Road was identified, and MOTI offered funding support for the trail through their active transportation programming. The CVRD would be required to prioritize the trail completion and submit an application. Director Grieve stated that this trail completion is his top priority. And we have almost 200 signatures to date on our online petition. Okay. So MOTI provided this map on the left. It's titled Macaulay Road, Potential Secondary Access Connections 2023. And it's showing the One Spot North Trail is the only viable access option to Ham Road. And on the picture on the right is the end of the trail. So the completed One Spot North Trail would be approximately 4.9 kilometers. The trail now ends at 3.8. So slightly over 1 kilometer is needed to complete the trail to access Ham Road. And you can get a truck on the trail. We've seen the maintenance contractor on the trail with a pickup truck. It's the old railway grade. Okay. Again, this safety issue has been ongoing. Personally, I've been writing letters to ministers and to the CVRD since 2012, and so have many of our members. This is a screenshot of an unsolicited email Miranda's received advocating for secondary road access. And we've been trying to help ourselves through fire smart programming and emergency preparedness. But if fast-moving wildfire comes through our area, we have been told by experts there is no time to evacuate this population. If you're wondering who our experts are, Rick here retired as Squadron Chief Warrant Officer of 442 Search and Rescue. My neighbor stated that this is a safety issue, and he managed wildfire suppression crews throughout the province. And we met a retired fire chief at the Black Creek Fair recently, moved to our area from Down Island, and just she said there would be no time to evacuate this population. Ooh. So this is our ask of the CVRD directors. We know the CVRD has the resources and the ability to complete this trail to Ham Road for public use and for use in emergency evacuation. So Miranda requests that this be action now as a top priority and as a necessary safety exception. 2 opportunities to provide an emergency exit were lost. One in 2017, when this last section of trail was sold privately, which was after the CVRD Parks and Greenways strategic plan was adopted, stating that the one-spot trail completion was a priority. And earlier in 2014, when 3 properties were subdivided and they showed an easement from Macaulay Heights Park for a trail or evacuation route to connect to the Bear Creek Park trails. Somehow this didn't happen, and CVRD staff haven't been able to discover why after the ALC approved the plan for this easement. This opportunity must not be lost and must be done now before the next fire season. So directors, please vote on a motion to complete the last kilometer of the One Spot North Trail to Ham Road as an immediate priority. And we've drafted a motion for you to vote on. So thank you. Yeah. It's the end of our presentation.
And 3 seconds to spare, I might add.
Yay. Do you have any comments?
I think that's a record. I think we have to give you the gold cup for that. It's like precise. Thank you, Catherine. I'm very, as you probably realize, live to this whole discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to the other directors to ask some questions. I see Director Arbor has a question.
Thanks, Chair, and congrats and condolences about the 12 years on this issue. And I was trying to jog my memory, but your presentation kind of covered it the last time you were here in 2021, and we passed some motions around this. So I'm just wondering, maybe to staff, whether there's what is required. Is this a case where we have to take over a right of way from the Ministry of Transportation? Is it a case where we need funding? Is it a case where the Ministry of Transportation would do it all? We just need to work with them. I'm trying to get my head around what are the steps, whether we take them or not, what are the steps if we were actually going to do this, what it looks like.
Thanks. Through the chair to the directors. So typically with the delegation, we would look for a staff report to come back to make sure that you've got the complete information. I can try to respond in short to a couple of those questions. And I think part of the answer would relate to, are you asking about permanent road access or emergency access or trail construction? And there's different processes for each, of course. On permanent road access, that is something that Ministry of Transportation is responsible for. The CVRD does not undertake acquisition or construction of or maintenance of roads. That's a ministry responsibility entirely.
I think we were quite clear here that we're looking at trail completion and with the ability to use it as an emergency access if required. So it's trail. And that's why it would come under the active transportation programming through MOTI.
And like I said, we would prefer to have a staff report to be able to provide you the full information as opposed to getting into a Q&A with the delegation in a setting like this.
And thanks to both for the feedback. So for trail, yeah, that would hint at me, even though we'll wait for a staff report. We can ask for that today, but that would hint at me that maybe we would have to take the right of way or something like that if we don't already have it. Is there bandwidth in our parks department or planning department to do this in the next month or two?
Not necessarily. We certainly have a full work plan from the budget that the board has put in front of us for both the parks and the planning departments. You have a work plan update on today's agenda on the Parks Department. So there's certainly a fair bit of work in front of that department right now. We would have the bandwidth to report back to you to describe what some of the process options are, and then it may be something that we'd have to look to a subsequent budget year to consider funding if there is an appetite to proceed.
Good. Okay, and then I have one last question for the delegation. So when you talked about that deadline around August 2025 and the urgent priority, is this out of like you're just tired of it and you want to see this done? Or I was trying to listen when you were saying there's an opportunity that seems to be open right now. I didn't quite catch what happened with the 3 lots. So is there an opportunity that could close over the next year? Or if you can talk a little more about that, I'd appreciate it.
I'm not sure what you mean. There is mapping and it shows the one spot trail at dead ends. And
Yeah.
then there's like 1 kilometer that's missing that would connect it to Ham Road.
Yeah. No, I was referring, you were talking about something with the ALC recently or something like that.
Oh, I was just pointing out an example where there's been opportunities for the regional district to provide, an access
Yeah.
for emergencies or trail access that would connect, the end of the road back up to the Bear Creek Park trails.
Gotcha.
And we have documentation that it was approved, and then for some reason, the opportunity seemed to be lost because those properties were sold without the easement taken up on it, without the easement wasn't registered.
Okay, thank you.
And we did talk, we communicated with Doug and we wrote a letter. Apparently it was before the staff's time, for some reason it was lost. So the point being that there were opportunities to be able to complete this trail, to provide, a trail for public use and for emergency access previously, but these opportunities appear to have been lost. And definitely with the population growing, the fire situation, we do need another safe access to get out.
Okay, thanks for going over that one once more. I'm not as familiar as Dr. Grieve, obviously, to the area, so that was helpful. Thanks.
Mhm.
And just as a part of public information, the CVRD has acquired not a right of occupancy, I can't remember, a license of occupation or whatever on most of the one spot trail from MOTI, which only took 25 years. But in this particular situation, private property owner had bought it off Modi, and actually when Catherine, Suzanne, and Rick and I were meeting with the minister, or not the minister, but one of the top guys at MOTI, we did let them know that what they got thousands of dollars for is costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy back. So, sort of just a little twist of the knife. But the thing about Catherine and Rick and Suzanne being here is that I thought it would be important for them to come and restate their case, because we have a bit of a different committee now with Richard on board and that, and the fact that we do have this on our long range plan, and it is complicated because it does involve provincial ministries and ALR and the Parks Department. But we can't, generally speaking, when we have, as the CEO pointed out, we will be bringing back a report on this. We don't usually react on the spot. It's bad policy to react right away to delegations, rather to bring them back later. You'll see that item number 2 is a report, or item number 1 on the unfinished business is a delegation follow-up. So that's what we will do on this as well. But I do thank them for bringing us forward again and refocusing minds, because I think it's very important that we put this on the radar.
Yeah, I thought that bringing it forward again would give you the opportunity for directors to vote on it as an important safety issue. So that's what we would like to see, is that you do a motion saying that is an important safety issue, that we do need to get this trail completed.
And that will fall out of the report. Director Hardy doesn't have a question, so Director Daniel Arbor.
Yeah, for this month, I mean, there are extraordinary situations where we voted on motions the day of, but I think this is not a simple pathway. And I think to give staff a month to come back with us with their organized thoughts on it. And I appreciate you were here 3 years ago, and I was kind of hoping this would get resolved in those 3 years, but I think an extra month would or so would allow us to actually have real clarity on the motion, and second, whether there's additional things we can put in there. In the interim, I don't probably need to tell you, but I would encourage your delegation to try to have a meeting with our MLA, if it's the same one or a new one, right after the election. I think that the MLA can have a fairly big influence on the project like this around when you talk about roadways and Ministry of Transportation. So hopefully that's been on your mind for the next couple of weeks, because when you talk about emergency and you talk about road safety and you talk all these different things, they're mostly in provincial hands. And I understand that Callan and the Moti office has been helpful, but I think it always helps to have a nudge from whomever our elected rep is on it. And on our end, I want to see this happen. Like, I don't know if we'll hit the August 2025, but let's try.
And again, you know, we have written to Moti and we have written to the CVRD, and Moti's response is they support the CVRD planning processes. So we need to make sure that in the CVRD planning process, that this is identified as a priority and this is actioned.
Last one. So as our CEO said, we do have the parks update later on, so I'll be happy to provide support to Director Grieve to try to move that one up in that discussion for sure.
And you made a very good point about the fact that after this election, it would be probably an important issue to raise with whomever gets elected from the area, which is why as local government officials, we love all the candidates because we have to work with whoever gets elected. Director Hardy, oh, hold on, Catherine. Director Hardy has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's not really as much of a question, but as much of again, appreciation to Suzanne for coming as a delegate today to express concerns and issues on what's happening on Ham Road or what's not happening on Ham Road. And I look forward to the staff report regarding options moving forward to try and help you folks out. I agree that this is an emergency issue, and hopefully we can come forward with some solutions that's win-win for everybody here in a quick and timely manner. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for bringing forward the delegation. And we don't need receipt. We got direction from staff to bring it back. So, okay, so number 2 is the residents of Tappan Street, Union Bay. For receipt, Malcolm Cohen and Ryan Limburner, the anglicized version of it, I guess. Thank you. Hold on. We got the newsboy delivering the times here. Okay. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hello, directors. My name is Ryan Limburner. I'm a resident on Tappan Street. Lots of history in Union Bay. And this concerns an area behind our lots. And developers and joining the CVRD and all this stuff. So it concerns options behind our properties of potentially purchasing a portion of now parkland, which was at one point the part of the developer's land, which was promised to Tappan Street residents. There was, what was it? Well, there was a,
Yeah, hi, everyone. I distributed a document, I'm sorry, Rich, on the back, there's a letter that Tappan Street residents received. This was back in 2005. I'm sure you're all much more familiar with that development than I am, and we appreciate all the work that went into the master development agreement. There seems to be some miscommunication or lack of transparency. In spring this year, the residents became aware that the property had already been transferred from Kensington to CVRD Parks. And as far as we understood, there was a commitment from Kensington to transfer a portion of that land to the homeowners. And we were quite disappointed to hear that there was not engagement or an awareness of that liability or that commitment between Kensington and CVRD. We've been trying to get a hold of Kensington, and that's been quite a big challenge. And we met with Daniel Arbor in the summer and showed him the area that was in contention. It had been used by residents for over 40 years. There was infrastructure installed, trees, fire breaks, plans for housing development for the homeowners, all of which were not fulfilled until there was a commitment to transfer the land fully. And now that the land's been transferred to CVRD, we're looking to understand what happened and how we can go forward here best for the homeowners.
I think my name's Carly Gilchrist. I'm obviously also a resident on Tappan Street. And so I think one of the other things we would like to know is recognize that, a developer making a commitment and then taking that to heart can seem kind of laughable. But I think it's not without any weight, especially because, as Malcolm described, this was part of building a relationship between the developer, who has a huge footprint within our community, and those residents whom would be directly impacted. And so this was understood in good faith as whether or not property would be transferred, or at least some kind of reasonable solution would be reached, so that residents were not especially out of pocket to have to remove a lot of their structures. Trees have been planted, orchards, this land is being used and shared. Memories are being made. Like it's not so black and white as oh no, it's just not your property anymore. So move your stuff. So recognizing that there's a master development agreement, a previous commitment that has not been upheld or seems to have been dismissed from memory, no one really accepting any kind of responsibility. We're hoping that there can be the discussion that the developer had committed to, but perhaps is no longer responsible for, of finding some kind of reasonable solution for us, whether that be opportunity to purchase land or opportunity to lease land, opportunity to have sort of like a buffer zone, as has been suggested as well. Some way for us to be able to accept and enjoy the park behind us, which we're all thrilled to have, but also not be so heavily impacted by having our properties constrained.
Hi, I'm Brett McKay. I've lived on Tappan Street for most of my life. I was born in Cumberland. I've got a house that backs on the property. I've put a fence around the whole property. There's structures on this property that were built in 1994. There's pictures of it, or it's been there for a while. Prior the picture. So I've been using that property because I was promised the property. When I bought the property, I was under the assumption that it was my property. So I put a big fence around, and I used the structures that were originally there for my storage of my things, my wood shed, for instance. And I've got my motorcycles and some other things that are in the structures, a couple old cars and stuff. And I was under an assumption that was our property. And I went behind that because when I moved in, it was a junk site. It was garbage. I put 32 dump truck loads of gravel over the old garbage that was out back there. And I cleaned it up, made a nice meadow, fire pit out there for everybody to enjoy. And we do sit around and use it. And I just like to take that land or get the land in whatever way we can. Buy it, lease it, put it on, put it on a, so when I leave, then it can go back to the parks. Or however we may do it. But I've got some stuff there that's gonna take a little bit to move if we have to move. And it's, got to put a big fence around, so it's, yeah, so, thank you.
And I believe what Malcolm had put on, is there a map on the back there? I believe what Malcolm had done is put 14.6 meters as sort of this threshold of this line that would cover a lot of these old orchards that people put in, and a lot of these this encroachment or standing structures would cover that. So if we had an option to purchase the small little fraction, 14.5 meters, think of the money that could be generated to potentially build out a trail network in Union Bay, which is down the pipeline. I don't know, just something to consider for us Tappan residents would be greatly appreciated, or other options, or thank you.
Well, don't run away.
No.
We have questions.
Oh, absolutely, we're here.
Do you have any more presentation?
Anybody
You got
else want to say something?
2.5 minutes if you need it.
Yeah.
Or do you want to just take some questions? I think questions would be more advantageous to your cause. And Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And that was one of the highlights of my summer, to bounce around the backyards behind Tappan Street and get a sense of the land there. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a street and properties that are like at the start of Union Bay, like that. Those are really historical properties that date back over 100 years. And I think the use behind those properties has been continuous through that. I think you're correct in stating, you know, there was discussions with the developer, and but again, like without anything being firmed up, it's I guess that's probably how it got not table around the CVRD when the transfer. So for me, as I discussed with the residents, that was kind of sad that before we even get to make a public announcement around the Union Bay Nature Park, there was already a dark cloud on it, you know, and I'm looking forward to present to Union Bay in November at the town hall, the nature park, because a lot of people in the community still don't know what's happening with that one. So, but they are hearing this issue around Tappan Street, that all of a sudden, and from my understanding, for the committee and staff, I think the residents receive a letter from the CVRD, basically almost threatening fines and such, and asking for them to remove their stuff from the land, right? So that's the part that I was surprised, because it's definitely an issue I'd heard like even 5 years or 6 years ago. And I'm actually supportive of looking at the 3 or 4 options that the residents have talked about. And I would be happy if we could get a staff report to outline what that could look like. I think what I heard both this summer and today is, you know, option to purchase that may or may not be feasible with our parks bylaws and stuff. Option to lease may or may not be feasible. A buffer zone that, you know, at least we stop the heavy-handed and people can have some use. And I know on Hornby we have Forts Cove Orchard, which, you know, a historical orchard and stuff, and people continue to use it even though it's been transferred to the park. So to get a bit creative rather than to say, you know, we're just going to take the hard line of the line that's there. So I don't know if staff wants to weigh at all today on this issue, or whether you want me to do a staff report, but it's not a lot of land. It's also land that is not going to be core to the park value, the core park value. This is land that's in a tiny triangle between the ENL and railway, which is parks. And it's you know, most of the action is gonna, and the trail building is gonna be along Hart Creek and such, right? I don't think that we have a lot of plans to go into that particular section. And if we're just talking about, did you say 15 meters or 15 feet? 15 meters?
14.6 meters.
Yeah. It's not, you know, I'm hoping that staff would be able to come up with some options for us to look at.
Yeah.
Keeping the residents whole in their historical use of that. It is encroachment, but I would rather that, you know, we find a solution. And walking through there, it's you know, yes, there are a few buildings that are encroaching and sometimes you can grandfather things or whatever. You know, no further improvements and, you know, I can think of a million ways. So anyways, I'm supportive of the delegation. I appreciate you guys coming. And if staff wants to weigh in, that's good. Or the committee members, that'd be great.
Thank you. Director Hardy, you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I guess listening to the presentation, I thank the delegates for being here today. I guess the one question I have is, it sounds like there was a commitment from the developer to the community or residents in that area that they would have access to that property. Is there something in writing from the developer to the community saying that this was going to be the case? Or are we just going on he said, she said? And I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that. Thanks.
Totally understand. Thank you for that. There was a letter distributed in 2005, so this development has been ongoing for my entire life. We've been walking my dogs back there for 20 years, and this development's been happening the entire time. So it dates back to 2005, and all the changes and development just started going on. And so I don't know if it was just a loss of that institutional knowledge or the information that was there, but the community was not engaged appropriately to communicate those liabilities, that commitment beforehand. And I mean, we're not interested in going through a legal action or through like a social petition at this time, because that would be way beyond our current capacity. But we'd like to understand if there's a way forward with CVRD to acknowledge that and try to find a more reasonable solution.
So a follow-up question, if I could, Chair. So if I'm understanding correctly, the property in question was a while back committed to the residents down in that area, and subsequently the developer has allocated the property to the CVRD to act as a park. Is that right? Just making sure things are clear there. So there is something in writing from the developer and the CVRD with regards to that agreement? Yes. Okay, I don't have access to that, so.
And I believe the commitment from the developer was the property all the way back to the ENN rail corridor. And we're just asking for just a slice of that from 14.6 meters to potentially purchase or use in another way. Yeah.
So if I could ask another question, Chair, and maybe I direct this towards the staff, is if the property in question here is part of the ENN railway, how does that work? And then how does that work with regards to what the CVRD and the Comox First Nation and other regional districts and First Nations are working on with regards to trying to figure out what they're going to do with the ENN railway?
So Director Hardy, the property in question is not actually part of the ENN railway. It in one corner of it, it does just abut the ENN corridor, but it isn't actually part of the ENN corridor. So it's separate.
Okay, thanks.
And Mr. Chair, if there's any further, no further questions. I think as mentioned earlier with the delegations, typically the committee will ask for a report or some sort of analysis to be able to present options and considerations. And I think this would be a good example where rather than committing any sort of commentary here from a staff perspective, a direction to staff to provide that report would be in order. And then part of it may have to be confidential if we are talking about land acquisition. But also there's a public process when we're talking about land disposition. So we'll have to work through those considerations and understand just what the options and process considerations are.
I believe Director Arbor has another question.
Yeah, just last comment. I appreciate the CEO's comment, and I think that's the right course to take. And my final comment, like those are tiny lots. They're not very big lots. And for me, long term, you know, as Union Bay is set for some densification and, it's hard to squeeze stuff in there. And if we could sort this issue, I think it could help with others as well. So, yeah, in my mind, the failure to, realize that agreement with Kensington, I don't think the CVRD can really wear that. I don't think there was a lot of awareness about that, but to actually problem solve in an area that's been lived in mostly by residents that have been there forever, I'm definitely supportive. So I'll be asking for a staff report later under new business. Thank you.
I want to thanks everybody for their time. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I sincerely thank you guys for coming in and bringing it to our attention, because a lot of this stuff, 2005, I don't think any of us were around back then. I wasn't even around back then in local government, so. And I'm an elder. Thanks so much. So we don't need to go to receipt, but obviously the understanding is that this will be coming back as a staff report, and we'll be actioning it at that point. So thanks again. Okay, we're moving right along. Unfinished business. Speaking of backup follow-ups, the delegation follow-up for the Buckley Bay Mystery Beach Road Safety Committee, which I guess needs a motion to receive. Moved and seconded, and over to CAO.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So you'll recall last Electoral Area Services Committee, you had a delegation from this individual, Charles Tremuan, and they had concerns around road safety on Highway 19A in the Buckley Bay Mystery Beach Road area. And you'll note later on this agenda, there is a discussion point around prioritizing some of the different considerations that you've heard with respect to Ministry of Transportation advocacy and conversation. And so rather than any further direction here, I would suggest that this be one of those topics you consider under the prioritization at the end of today's agenda around MODI topics. And then we understand Ministry of Transportation will have a representative attending a future Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. They try to attend a couple times a year. And so that would be probably a good point to raise any sort of priority issues with the ministry, either at that meeting or in writing or both. So unless you have any further direction on this item at this time, I would suggest that be part of the conversation at the end of today's agenda.
Director?
Yeah, thanks. And I think the committee's done an excellent job of presenting the case, and they're not alone. In Fanny Bay and Union Bay and Royston, we have groups that are asking for a similar thing. There's been very little changes to Highway 19A. And even looking at Black Creek, where there is a zone that drops to 6 kilometers an hour, like those are doables. So I appreciate that the committee is staying on it, and I'll be happy to accompany them again when the new MLA for my area, not yours, but for mine is either reconfirm or we have a new one, because that'll be the time to get in front of people with our priorities. So thanks to staff for the report.
Yes, and I was just at a little meeting yesterday, actually, at the Merville store area about this at least a speed reader sign or something like that. So that's something we're going to have to pursue. It seems to be a complicated issue because the issue of speed reader signs in the city, of course, is not an issue because they're not reliant necessarily on the ministry, even if it is on provincial highways. So it's kind of a conundrum. We're going to have to get to the bottom of it. And I think there's a desire at this table to do so, whether or not it's through this body or whether it's just delegations through to the ministry itself. Director Weber?
Yeah, thanks for those comments. And I mean, honestly, like every year or two, we continue to see deaths on those roads, usually linked to high speed. So I think for the ministry to just say, well, people are going to drive that's basically, we designed the speed limit around what people are likely to drive at, is kind of what I heard last meeting, which was kind of jaw dropping. There's multiple ways that we can encourage the province to improve road safety, and what's the value of a life? Like, honestly, it's just, you had some fatal accidents in your area in the last year. And yeah, I don't think we should let up in our advocacy on that.
Well, like they say, as a local government official, our biggest power is the power of persuasion. So we're on receipt. Anybody opposed receipt? Nods all around. We're moving on. Okay, so the resolution status report for receipt as well. And seconded by Richard. Over to the staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If you have any questions about the resolution status report, staff are available to answer them. And we will endeavor over the next couple of meetings to take a more critical look at these items and ensure that it's up to date with any topics or projects that maybe could be combined with other topics or resolved in other ways.
Or put in a parking lot. That's good news. Okay. So did we vote on receipt? Not yet. Okay, is any opposed? Seeing no opposition. Now, we've got the Advisory Planning Commission minutes for Area A Advisory Planning Commission from September 9th. We have move all three. The other one is the Agriculture Advisory and Area B. So all three for receipt. I'll second that. Any comments? Anyone opposed to receipt? That carries. Now on to Electoral Area A Development Variance Permit 4A246832 Buckley Bay Frontage Road. Moved and seconded. I'll second it. And over to CEO for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For this item, the development variance permit on Buckley Bay Road, Alberic Marginet, our planner will be introducing the report and available to answer any questions. So, Alberic.
Thank you through the CAO to the chair and committee members. The property owners Greg Homan and his agent Chris Anderson are in attendance today. I would like to request that they join us at the table.
Press your little green button there, or a little gray button, and there we go. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you.
Right, through the chair to the committee, to the commission members, staff has received development variance permit application for 6832 Buckley Bay Frontage Road to decrease the minimum front yard setback for a proposed residential development. The subject property is approximately 0.14 hectares in size or 0.36 acres, is zoned country residential 1 and designated as being in the rural settlement area. The property is developed with accessory outbuildings and a dock. The country residential 1 zone prescribes a minimum front yard setback of 7.5 meters for principal uses, including residential dwellings. The applicant requests to reduce the front yard setback by 1.5 meters from 7.5 meters to 6.0 meters, which is a 20% reduction. The purpose of this variance is to enable development to meet flood construction level of 5.88 meters and a 15-meter floodplain setback from the future natural boundary as prescribed by a geotechnical engineer. This request is ideal as it moves the development away from flood hazards and towards safety. Generally, the purpose of lot line setback requirements are to maintain privacy between neighboring properties, to ensure structures can be maintained without needing to go off property, and to ensure development is consistent with neighborhood form and character. The Area A APC reviewed this development variance permit application at their meeting on September 9th, 2024, and chose to recommend approval. Staff recommends approval as this application is presented for the reasons that it is unlikely to increase privacy concerns, it is unlikely to increase the difficulty of maintaining the building, and it is unlikely to impact the neighborhood form and character, and it will move development further away from floodplain hazards and prevent the need for a floodplain exemption application. Please be advised that adjacent property owners within 100 meters of 6832 Buckley Bay Frontage Road have been advised of this application and given the opportunity to comment. No official comments in support or opposition have been received. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have some questions already from Director Harper.
Yeah, thanks. This seems pretty sound to me and good to go on my end.
Okay, and any questions or comments from Director Hardy?
No questions at this time, Chair.
Thank you very much. So do the applicants care to speak to the matter at all? Are you satisfied with the report, the way it was
Yeah.
rolled out?
Yeah, I think so, except for the 20% reduction. The house is on an angle, so actually you've got it down to about 5%. There's just one little corner that catches, like from 7.5 reduced to 6 in one corner, not the whole area. So it brings it down to about 5% is the area that's we're asking to move it.
Well, we're dealing with the report as it's presented. Yeah, Director?
Yeah, is this important enough that you would want to go back to the drawing board, or because we're going to vote on the report as
Oh, no,
presented
no.
today?
Go ahead.
Oh,
No.
okay. Just checking so that you have the opportunity in case you wanted to go back to
Okay.
the
Oh,
process.
no, I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And I noticed that we have a consideration on here for comments in the addendum, but there are no comments, so we don't have to go there. So anybody in the gallery have anything to add to the matter? Any concerns, any comments? Seeing none, then I'll call it on receipt. Anybody opposed to receipt? That sails through unanimously. I'll second it. We're moved to second on the recommendation. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the recommendation. Anyone opposed to the recommendation? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Number 3, Electoral Area B Temporary Use Permit Application TUP 1B 24-122 for 124 Stafford Street. And seconded on receipt. And speaking on the matter, introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Stephanie Pollock, our planner, will be introducing this staff report and the next couple of reports actually as well. So Stephanie, over to you.
Great, thank you. Through the CAO to the chair and directors, I'd first like to invite the applicant, Henry Baudouin, to join us here at the table. An application has been received to consider a temporary use permit application to use the existing secondary dwelling unit as a tourist accommodation. The zoning bylaw refers to short-term rentals as tourist accommodations, and those are only permitted in the commercial zones. In the country residential 1 zone, a bed and breakfast is permitted as a home occupation use, but is limited only to the principal dwelling. In this case, the owners intend to continue using the principal dwelling as their residence and are seeking to add tourist accommodations to the list of permitted uses on the property. A temporary use permit allows a use that is not otherwise permitted in a zone for a specified amount of time, up to a maximum of 3 years, and the permit may specify conditions under which the temporary use may operate or must operate. Please be advised that all adjacent properties within 100 meters of the subject parcel have been notified by a mail of the application to be given the opportunity to comment prior to the application going forward to the EASC for consideration. To date, we have received 1 written submission in support of the application. The property owner, Henry, is in attendance here at the table and available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now is the part where we get to ask questions, and Director Harper, you're first.
Yeah, this one looks good to me as well, and I got a feeling we're gonna start like it started a few months ago before summer. We started seeing these TUPs and for tourist accommodation, and I got a feeling we're gonna see quite a few of them. So I have no concerns with it, and there being no concerns from neighbors either, so that's helpful. So it's good to go on my end.
Yes, as you know, TUP is the only process we have in electoral areas to actually approve something like this at the present time. So, Director Hart, do you have any comments or questions?
No concerns at this time, Chair.
Okay. And does the proponent have anything to add to the
No, I'm quite pleased with
discussion?
the presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Everybody's done their job. So we'll receive this, if there's no more discussion, we'll receive the report. Anyone opposed to receiving the report? That carries. Now we have correspondence from John and Helen Molnar for receipt. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the comments? Correspondence? Nothing. So anyone opposed to receiving the correspondence? That carries. There's no future, no addendum needed. There's no further comments unless there's a comment from the gallery. Anyone in the gallery wishing to speak to the matter? Seeing none, that brings us to the recommendation itself. Seconded. So on the recommendation that the temporary use permit for a term of 3 years to permit tourist accommodations on the property described be approved. And finally, the corporate office be authorized to execute a temporary use permit. The applicant has provided a written acknowledgement that the applicant has read, understands, and agrees to these conditions and the permit. So we're on the recommendation. Any further comments? Anyone opposed to the recommendation? That carries. Thank you. Moving along at the splintering pace, electoral area C. Good old electoral area C. Mount Washington Short-Term Rental Accommodation Service Zone Zoning Amendment. Report for receipt. Moved and seconded on receipt. And over to CAO.
Thanks again, and over to Stephanie again for this introduction of this report. Yeah.
There you go, Stephanie.
Thanks. Through the CAO to the chair and directors, staff has initiated an amendment to the zoning on Mount Washington that would enable short-term rental accommodation service within the residential accommodation and resort facilities districts. Currently, zoning within the resort accommodation district does not permit short-term rental accommodation service, other than in the form of a bed and breakfast as an accessory use to the principal residential use. Without this rezoning, short-term rentals, other than in the form of a B&B, require a site-specific approval, either in the form of an amendment to the property zoning or a TUP, temporary use permit. Staff are proposing this amendment in anticipation of the province launching its registry in 2025, which will require platforms to remove listings without valid provincial registry numbers. On May 6th, 2024, the board endorsed the agency referral list and First Nations referrals. Hamalko First Nation states that it has no concerns at this time. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure has no objections. Area C Advisory Planning Commission supports the proposed amendment. So in conclusion, no agency or First Nation responded with concerns about the proposed amendment. Staff recommends that the draft bylaw be given first and second reading and that a public hearing be scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have questions, Director Arbor?
Yeah, that's pretty sensible, and I guess we're not at the stage of looking at this for all the areas. So this is just specific to Mount Washington, but I got a feeling at some point we'll come back with area A, B, and C where we currently don't allow vacation rentals, but we know there's a ton of them. We still haven't quite addressed that piece. For Mount Washington, I think it's especially easy because for me, because it's not an area known for permanent residency. And so, I think that people owning a home and being able to rent it and stuff like that, I don't see a concern in rural areas. A lot of people struggle with incomes and maybe Mount Washington is a little different, but it's I think for a lot of people, it's a nice way to add to their cost of, an income to their cost of living. So anyways, I quite happy to see that proceed and go to what's it called again? Public hearing. And then I would designate the Director Grieve as chair and Director Hardy as second chair. So should Director Grieve fall sick or something.
We'll keep that in mind when we get to the recommendation. Director Hardy, anything to add?
No, pretty straightforward, Chair.
I agree. Yeah, after all, it is a tourist commercial area. Okay, so on receipt of report, anybody opposed? That carries. And we have a recommendation that Director Arbor wants to put forward, I think. Oh, you put it forward, okay. Just rewind the tapes or rewind the computing cloud. So I'm sorry, who was first vice and second vice? What order was it in again? For the record, do you have it? You must have it. She's
Okay, I'll move that Comox Valley Regional District give first and second reading to bylaw number 817, amendment number 616. And in regards to public hearing, that Director Grieve be designated as the chair and Directors Hardy and I guess Arbor as a third designated as first chair, vice chair, and second vice chair respectively for the public hearing.
Second.
That pretty well takes care of all the electoral directors. Okay, so that's seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you so much. Number 5, Electoral Area C zoning bylaw amendment, RZ2C 24 Lot 4, Schultz Road, report for receipt. Moving second on receipt and back over to staff.
Yep. One more over to Stephanie, please, for this one. Stephanie?
You're earning your keep today, dear. There you go.
One more. Through the CAO to the chair and directors, I'd first like to invite the applicant Harvey Fountain up to the table here. Yeah, absolutely. And before outlining the application, I first just need to flag a small correction to the staff report. The report references Appendix B, but it should instead refer to Appendix A. There is no Appendix B. Thanks. An application has been received to consider a rezoning for an undeveloped 2.03 hectare parcel of land from Country Residential 1 to Residential 1 for the purpose of subdividing the subject property into 3 lots. The Residential 1 zone has a minimum lot size of 0.4 hectares if the lot is connected to either community water or sewer. The subject property is not currently within the Black Creek Oyster Bay Water Local Service area. However, a water main was recently installed fronting the subject property, and a latecomer agreement applies to this property for connection to the BCOB Water Local Service area. The established water main extension along Schultz Road was a condition required of previous developers to support a nearby subdivision along Schultz Road. Several other properties, including the subject property, were named as benefiting lands in the agreement as they would receive the benefit of the new water main extending past the frontage of their properties, ready to connect with a service connection. The applicant has applied to join the Black Creek Oyster Bay Water Local Service area to connect to community water. Being in a settlement node, the proposed rezoning to enable subdivision is consistent with the RGS, provided that connections to the BCOB water system are approved. Staff recommends proceeding with First Nations and external agency referrals, and staff will hold off on forwarding the proposed bylaw amendment for consideration until receipt of a decision by the Black Creek Oyster Bay Services Committee. The property owner, Harvey, is here and available to answer any questions you might have, as well as myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director Arbor, you got a question?
Yeah, more like comment, I guess. we've had so much like action on Schultz Road. It's like across a number of files the last 4 years. And it's just a small road. But stuff keeps coming up. But I'll repeat what I said to other applicants before. I think that that whole area is kind of meant for some degree of densification, it being right next to the school, and we've started providing some connectivities with the parks and trails and things like that. So for me, I definitely have no concerns in forwarding that to referrals to kickstart the process. Thanks.
And Director Hardy?
No comments or concerns right now, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Does the proponent wish to speak to it?
Stephanie talked about most things. Like we bought this lot over 30 years ago, and we had intentions of building on it. Plans changed, and a lot of time has passed, and once the water line got put down Shoals Road, I thought, well, time to do something with it. Hopefully the water service, Black Creek Oyster Bay Water Service will give us connections. Like Stephanie said, we've applied. It's real close to schools. There's a new regional park that was established directly across from our lot, and there's trails leading right to the school. Be a great place to build family homes. But thank you, and yeah, that's it.
Well, you might be aware that we're actually conducting a local area plan over the next year for that area. So that now you're a dyed-in-the-wool resident, we certainly hope you turn up for those meetings and add your 2 cents worth on how you'd like to see that area develop. Because as you know, it is a growth node or a settlement node. So it's a prime area for some very reasonable development, some smart development, which I think we can offer there. So Director Hardy or Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I do have a question, and I agree, like with the applicant. I think when we managed to put in some of those new parks and trails, like that's long-term value for the entire area, in my opinion. Anything that you build around schools is good. I had a question, which is, should they fail to get water from the Black Creek Oyster Bay? Because I mean, there's still issues there around the wells and such. Actually, that's a reminder to myself if I find the time to continue to lobby around rainwater primary in the province of British Columbia, because we're still very much well-oriented or water system oriented. And the province, even though like we're declaring all these droughts, you look at Australia where you got rainwater primary kind of as a matter of public policy everywhere. And somehow in BC, we're just dragging our feet on it. And when I say that, it's a lot of systems that I know that are semi-legal with rainwater are just to get people through the summer when there is not a lot of, so it's, anyways, there's a lot of advocacy, and I understand for our staff, it's irrelevant because it's not an option right now. But I think as elected official, we need to keep talking to the province to move forward on that. So long detour to my question. If they cannot connect to Black Creek or Oyster Bay, is there the opportunity to apply for wells on those properties?
So I think, Tom, would you,
Years ago, when we cleared an area, and we'd have a well on the property right now. But we've never used it as potable water.
and Tom, are you able to speak to the process then around connecting into the Black Creek Oyster Bay system?
Through the CO to the chair and to the members. So through this process, the staff report mentioned that to be consistent with the bylaw, this property needs to be connected to the service area.
To be consistent with our RGS and OCP. The applicant has applied to the BCOB Water Service area to see if that could be applicable to them. Staff has spoken to the engineering department, and there's some they feel pretty confident that these two properties will be able to have that capacity for that service. I believe there has been a water study for this area, and staff did calculate these two of these properties as part of future connections.
And a follow-up?
So just for my future reference on applications like this one, so anything that's in that basin that is in the Black Creek Oyster Bay Basin cannot go on wells. Basically, it has to be connected. Is that just certain properties, or is it the whole area that any property that wants to subdivide or should get connected?
Through the chair to Director Arbor, this property is almost right dead center of the Saratoga area. It's in the Silman zone.
Yeah.
So as staff, we would like to see this to be included into this area. I believe there's probably 6 or 6 properties that are outside the BCOB that should be in it. So we're just waiting for the applicants or their BCOB members to include them.
Thanks for that extra information.
And just to be clear, this comes back to the Black Creek Oyster Bay Services Committee. So I'm taking another stab at it. Okay, that's very good. I'd like to excuse you from the table and thank you for your presence. And we'll take a vote on receipt. Anybody opposed to receipt? Hearing none, that carries. And the recommendation attached. Moved, and I'll second it. Any further discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries as well. Short break. Okay, we're taking a short break for shortbread.
Yes.
Director Hardy, are you with us? Are you
I
still
think
with
so, Chair.
us? Good, okay. I see you took advantage of a snack too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. And number 6 is phasing out of the Comox Valley SPCA panel contract. And representing the canines, we have Mr. Wolf Paws. Just kidding. We don't have any representation for the canine population, but we do have, for introductions from the CAO, is Amanda.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, Amanda Yazinski, our Senior Manager of Building and Bylaw Compliance, will be introducing this report and taking any questions. So Amanda, over to you.
Good morning to the CAO, to the chair. So this report is for information only and to provide the committee an update on this topic that the SPCA has put us on notice, as well as other neighboring municipalities, Village of Cumberland, Town of Comox, and City of Courtenay. They're ending kenneling services within Comox Valley. And to just provide an update on where we're at in obtaining a new kennel service provider. So on May 31st, SPCA called a joint meeting and advised ourselves and our neighboring municipalities that they would be ending our kenneling services. So they did initially advise that they wanted to phase us out by the end of September. CBRD did put in a formal request to have our services go month to month till the end of the year, and they have agreed. So we do have kenneling in place with the SPCA until December 31st of 2024. Our plan and goal is to obtain a new kennel provider in that time frame that will seamlessly go transition from the end of services with SPCA at the end of the year and start January 1st, 2025. So we're actively exploring kenneling options within the regional district, kennel provider that would be an independent contract with each member municipalities if they chose. Primarily at this time, it's been communication with myself and a representative from City of Courtenay. We have narrowed it down to a kennel, and we'll be going through our procurement process, further conversations on entering into a service contract. SPCA will still be open and active within the valley. They've provided us a list of items they will still provide to members of the community. This includes all their donor-funded services, including accepting stray animals that are not identified in a municipal bylaw. So for us, that would be cats, would still be housed and intook at the BCSPCA in Comox. Owner surrenders if someone is no longer able to care for their dog or moving, can't take it, SPCA would still be able to administer that. Emergency boarding, they provide pet food to residents in need in the valley, and there's spay and neuter programs. And there's some other options as well. Their foster programs and adoption. So again, staff are collaborating with member municipalities on options. We feel we've found a viable one, and each municipality will be updating their respective committee and council same. And I can answer any questions on any of this and what it means for us moving forward as well.
So before we start discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive the report. And second it. Any questions? Well, this one kind of tugs on your heart for sure. My question is this something that the SPCA is doing nationally, getting out of this? Or is it just specific to the Comox Valley SPCA in our district?
They've advised that they've looked at certain areas under contract and what their needs are. They've been at capacity for dogs at this local shelter for other emergencies across BC and have struggled to maintain their service levels for us. I do know that I can share they have advised they're looking at other areas as well. So it's not just the Comox Valley. And I don't know about nationwide, but
yeah, it's obviously the communication piece on this is going to be very important because you're going to strike a chord out there for sure with animal lovers in general, and hopefully we'll have an uptake of adoptions of dogs because you know, this is a stopgap measure anyway, basically, right? So is hopefully we can package this in such a way that you know the public understands that what the reasoning is behind all this, and I know the RCMP themselves are quite concerned because they don't have any place to put the animals that they apprehend as well. So it was an issue, I think, brought up by the new inspector. Any of the directors have anything to chime in with here?
Yeah, Chair, it is disappointing, and I think a number of our residents in the Comox Valley have gone to that particular kennel to find a new family member.
Yeah.
So with this news, it is disappointing, but hopefully we can come to some quick and speedy resolutions here. Thanks.
Ditto that. Oh, Amanda, one more?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to clarify that the SPCA on Ryan Road is still going to be open for adoptions. So for individuals who would like to go there and find a good fit, that is still, they're still going to be there. They're open. We'll work with them on, any animals that may come in that do not go home through their adoption program as well. So they are still going to be open to the public in every aspect for adoption of cats, dogs, that they're still there. So we're under contract with them for kenneling of dogs brought in through our animal control officers, through strays found through bylaw. So sometimes that might be 3 to 4 dogs a month. Sometimes so it's not a lot of animals that go through. And our goal through our license sales is that they all go home. So we're still maintaining those service levels through our animal control contract, which is separate, and then through the new kennel provider.
Well, that's definitely good to know. Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I was just going to say thank you, Amanda, for clarifying that. And I think moving forward with regards to communication, I think that should be the first important communication that goes out to the community, is that, yes, there are going to be some changes, but the ability to adopt a cat or a dog or whatever animals you might have up there is still open. So I think if we make sure that's communicated well, then I think moving forward we should be okay. Thanks.
Thanks so much for this. That brings us to the point where we vote on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that carries. Number 7, operational update. Park Falls, report for receipt. And seconded.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mark Harrison, our manager of parks, will be presenting this report, and it's an opportunity for, there's no specific request being made here or recommendation being made to the directors. It's more of an opportunity to share with you the highlights and the work plan projects that Parks has been focusing on for the 2024 year to date, and a chance to celebrate some of those successes and identify some of the work going forward. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you, James. Through the chair, I just wanted to bring this forward to give you an update on where we're at with our major projects and some of our operational pieces that we delivered this 2024. So within the, this is, I know, extremely difficult to read, but this is basically a list of the major projects that we are working on delivering in 2024. Basically, we list the projects as either they're complete, they're in progress, they've been stalled for some reason, or they haven't been started. I think we can look at that and we can see we've completed about a third of our projects. We got about a third of them are in progress, and then about a third have been stalled or haven't been started. A few of the pictures there are some of the projects that we're working on or working on delivering this year in 2024. So that includes the Dyke Road project, the CIT with that bridge there, and that's the Macaulay washroom in the lower right. But I just want to go over some of the major projects that we've delivered and then look at what we're proposing as the next 3 years of major projects, and then I'll be open to answer any questions you may have about these projects or any other parks projects that you may have. So in terms of the Lazo Greenway, that construction is underway. The trail work is planned to be completed probably late 2024 or early 2025, but it is highly dependent on the sewer conveyance project timelines. The Dyke Road project, that construction is underway, and we've largely completed the first phase of the project, which is the estuary work and the construction of the new fish channel, as well as putting in the helical piles that will support a future boardwalk. We are anticipating that project to be completed in early 2025. So once we've got still a little bit more work to do on the phase 1 piece. And once that's completed, we will move into the more upland component. The Denman Cross Island Trail, that project is currently on hold between the section between Owl Crescent and Gravelly Bay. We did complete the downtown section. Just an update on the Owl to Gravelly Bay section. We have largely completed from Owl Crescent to the large Modi double lot Modi beach access. That has been largely completed. The southern section that's closest to the ferry terminal has largely been completed as well, although it does need topping on it still. We are currently waiting on a heritage inspection permit from the province. And once we've received that, we can begin an archaeological impact assessment along the unbuilt corridor pieces. So we're hoping end of October that we can receive that. And then we can then apply for our site alteration permit. So we're looking at probably construction restarting in early November and probably completing sometime in early 2025. Staff were out there last week and did do a little inspection of what was there with the contractor. So there are a few little issues with the trail that we're going to be kind of adjusting here momentarily. Shingle Spit boat launch. So we are working towards finalizing that design and working on obtaining all the necessary permits and the approvals with anticipating construction in 2025. The beach access invasive plants. So during the 2024-2028 financial planning process, there was a request to work that staff work on some project to remove invasive plants from unmanaged beach accesses to help support public access. So in that vein, staff did identify unmanaged beach accesses that could benefit from that. We did a short survey. We distributed it to 14 local community groups. And from that, staff are proposing that we work on the Laval beach access up in Area C in the Saratoga Miracle Beach community in 2025, and that we can start work with Sambra on that to support this work. In terms of parks bylaw support, we did have the return of a dedicated bylaw officer for parks this year from mid-May till mid-September. And I think the good thing from that is that we did notice that compliance rates for dogs off leash definitely went up considerably. And this year to date, there was a total of 29 tickets that were issued for failing to leash, of which 24 have been paid. So I think having that dedicated officer out there this year has definitely helped with our compliance. The beach fire program, it ran for 72 days this summer, from May till July 12th, at what point it was closed because of fire restrictions. So that is up considerably from last year, where we only had 38 days. I think what of note is that the number of cars that entered and stayed at Goose Pit Park this year went up significantly based on numbers that we had from last year. So we had over 128,000 vehicles within the span from May 1st to August 23rd. And that is up from 2023, where we saw just over 96,000. And in 2022, we saw just over 94,000. So significant increase, whether that's related to, a doubling of the beach fire program, hard to say, but that park's getting a lot of use. The cost of the beach fire program in 2024 was just over $15,000, which is approximately $209 a day. In terms of the one spot trail, staff did work to secure a statutory right of way through 4729 Condenser Road, which is the south part of the One Spot Trail, to extend it 50 meters further, and construction is underway for that small section. All right. So based on this, we put together a just projected parks projects work plan, just to bring this forward to the directors, just to show where we're at in terms of our projects. The dark green represents asset management. So projects that we need to fulfill to make sure those assets still are workable. The light green are ongoing projects that have been supported by the directors that we're continuing to kind of work on. And then the green or the orange are new projects or projects that have yet to be started, that have been supported by the committee. So I wanted to just kind of show you here that we've got a lot on the books. Our 2025 is largely accounted for based on the staff resource levels that we have currently. So based on that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
And Director Arbor has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for all the work that the Parks is doing on across all the different projects. And it is a very healthy list for sure. And I'll just touch on 2 or 3 of them. So thank you for the update on the Cross Island Trail. In fact, this weekend there was some discussion on Facebook on Denman and feeling like the project was not going as expected. I think especially in the area near the ferry terminal, where it looks like it's a completed trail, but now all the weeds have come through it and it's just looked like a total mess. So people are like, don't these guys know what they're doing with all the money that's being spent? So I'm glad that that's going to get addressed, and that there's a realization there's a topping missing there, and that maybe there's also a few other sections that look just not quite up to the standard that we're used to. So I was glad that you just acknowledged that today, and I'll be able to report back to Denman residents that the timeline that you spoke of, and that we acknowledge some of the problems that we've encountered. So that's appreciated. Great news on the shingle spit, boat launch. I didn't see either unless the code for that one is wrong, but we have the Royston little beach access in that area. We talked about that a few months ago around misuse of the small boat launch area, and just generally that the rebuilding of the platform, unless it's the project called RSST. It is okay. So what is that RST? The Seaside Trail.
Yes,
just clued in. Yeah, Royston Seaside Trail. Got it. Okay, so that is on there. And there was one this morning that maybe Director Grieve will want to talk about. We have a request around, I don't see it around the Macaulay Road One Spot Trail. So Mark, you weren't there, but there was a delegation this morning asking for us to consider taking out a right away. And I was just wondering if it was at all on our active list of projects, or I also heard you talk about capacity issues and with the full slate of projects you have. So if the committee wanted to work on that, would we have to identify projects that potentially could be paused and et cetera? Just wondering out loud, because I know Dr. Grieve's been working on that issue for a number of years, and I'd like to know that it's at least on the list somewhere and that we could have a discussion around it. Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair. Well, there is a little spot there. The second one is acquisitions, which is kind of an ongoing project. So that is something that's kind of on our radar that we continue to work on. So I believe that we would have ongoing capacity to take on something like that.
Unless, yeah, I'll go to Dr. Hardy first.
Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Director Arbor, for your comments there. I was going to flag those as well. So first and foremost, James, I'd like to acknowledge you and your team and the Parks team with regards to all the activities that have been undertaken and completed, and some of the stuff that's in process right now as well. A lot of hard work and effort there, and I think there's times where we just need to take a second to acknowledge the staff and just say thank you for all your hard work and efforts there. Secondly, again, I just wanted to flag some of the issues that Director Arbors brought up with regards to Macaulay Road. I know we had a delegation come in this morning and talk about maybe an option for emergency access purposes would be the one spot trail there up around Macaulay Road. And their request, I think, was for an extension of the Macaulay or the one spot trail of about a kilometer. Just wanting to know, I guess where I'm going with this question is through the chair to the staff there was a mention of the Condensery Road one spot trail that was extended by 50 meters. And I was just kind of curious about what the cost was revolving around that extension of 50 meters, and would that be relevant to the cost if we were considering doing extending the one spot trail around Macaulay Road?
Yeah, through the chair, I don't actually have the cost for that extension. But that extension was granted through a statutory right of way on private property. We had to largely rebuild that from nothing. So we did have to do some trail buildup. So I'm not sure if the numbers would correlate directly with any kind of work on extending the one spot north from Ham Road, which is largely has a built road on it. Not sure if that answers your question or not.
Maybe if I could just add to that and maybe pick up a little bit on what you mentioned earlier on the acquisitions item. The one spot trail we know is a high priority for the CVRD ABC Park Service, and completing the one spot from north to south. So that is an ongoing priority for the CVRD Parks Department. And as Mark noted, the acquisitions item there under the second one on the list certainly reflects that priority. As for a comparative between the 50-meter condenser extension you mentioned, Director Hardy, and any other kind of acquisitions, I think they're so unique and they're so site specific. It's really hard to say that a meter of trail is going to cost X dollars because of that, site specific nature. So whether you're talking about acquisition or capital improvements to upgrade the surface, it's a really hard number to put to that without looking at the area in question.
And that's fair. I just asked the question. So with that being said, with regards to priorities for 2025 and beyond, based upon the delegation that came forward this morning from Macaulay Road, and obviously I'm probably overstepping the boundaries here, but again, do we make Macaulay Road a priority in 2025? And obviously it's difficult to say, yes, we're going to make it a priority if we haven't seen a staff report yet. So I'm guessing based upon a staff report that there might be an opportunity to make Macaulay Road a priority for emergency purposes, make it a priority. But like I said, I'm just flagging that for the time being for the CAO and staff that there has been an issue put forward and we'd like to see it get resolved sooner rather than later. If I could, Chair, just one follow-up question. It's again based upon another delegation that came to visit us this morning, and that was revolving around Tennant Street. And from my understanding, from what was put forward by the delegates, that some of them are receiving citations bylaw enforcement citation. So I'm just kind of wondering, while we're trying to figure out things with regards to encroachment, whether there is encroachment or not, that maybe the citations could be put to the side until we resolve that issue or staff reports come forward. And maybe that's under new business later on, but again, just ask the question. Thanks.
I'm turning it over to the CAO for comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Director Hardy. For both of those topics, both the one spot considerations and the Tappan Road property owners who were part of the delegation, I think we'd be looking for direction under new business to come back with a report on that matter. And as I mentioned during the delegations, it may be a report that would be at a closed session, depending on the nature of it, of the topic, if it's about property acquisition or disposition. So we would be looking for a motion through the new business for both of those topics.
Thank you very much. And Director
Thanks,
Arby.
Chair.
Dr. Arby, you got some more comments?
Yeah, just a little bit. A topic that's not on there and shouldn't be on there, but that's on the horizon. And I'm not sure if, I know we're gonna get, not at this table, well, maybe at this table, I don't know if it's gonna go here to the board around active transportation, but we did receive a delegation from Hornby in August around the trails on Hornby, the roadside trails have been put in about 15 years ago in the center, and there's a renewed appetite to try to do some improvements because the traffic, especially at the height of summer, is almost dangerous. The speeds are still reasonable, but it's just really heavy with cars and bikes sharing the road and the trail not being very appropriate. So I'm just wondering if this would come under parks or this would come under active transportation. Where am I best to advocate for a project like that? Because currently it lives under the actual right-of-ways live under our park service. So should I ask for long-term, long-range for improvements or exploration? On Denman, when people talk to me about an active transportation strategy, we have it. It's like the Cross Island Trail and some connected things. On Hornby, we don't really have an active transportation strategy, but there is that desire from community members and HIRA and others to try to re-inject some modernized view of what that could be. So I'm just wondering where I should kick that to.
I think I'd have to go back to revisit I believe there's a delegation. Was there a delegation in the August meeting? And that was one meeting that I missed, so I wasn't actually a part of that session, but there is a role there for the Ministry of Transportation, given that these are road corridors and road rights of ways. And to date, our right of ways through the Park Service have not necessarily been about some of these more congested areas. They've been more in terms of road right of ways or trail right of ways to connect up neighborhoods. So it's a little bit of a different mix there. And Mark and I haven't had a chance to really talk about that or with Doug. So I'm not sure if Mark or Doug have anything to add to that, but I think we'd want to give that some consideration, understanding what the Ministry of Transportation role is in that particular community.
And if I'll just jump on that, my understanding is that long range planning is bringing something forward in terms of active transportation. So staff are waiting to see what the results of that are before we look to figure out how we're going to come up with a solution and how we can action the Hornby ask.
That's fair. I can wait for that and be patient. And I do remember the comments at the time is on that one and housing. The board will, should consider whether it wants to really get serious or not. And I don't know if it's going to be regional or in the areas, but whether we're serious about it or not, the needs are there. So, yeah. So I think that's the right answer for me. Just wait to see the active transportation framework or update that comes up. Oh God, I had one tiny little more and I forgot. I guess it'll go to the next time. So in terms of this, like you're capturing some of our comments and feedback today, but in terms of the budget cycle, is this the last time we see parks before you come back with your budgets, I guess? In terms of an update?
Yeah, typically, sorry, Mark, I think the budget is expected to be presented in January.
Yeah.
And so this would be the last time you'd see a parks update of this nature. Of course, if parks have additional materials that we need direction on, then you'll have staff reports come forward on
Okay.
those items. But yes, it would be at the budget presentation time.
Okay, great. And while I have the mic, I remember my tiny item. That one is just awareness. It's not a request, but just sometimes it's just good for people to have that awareness. I saw a little trip in the washroom, but I don't know how far a little trip extends in our right of way, but I was there 2 weekends ago with Conservancy Hornby and RMLA Josie, and just the three of us. And there's a discussion happening around the Beulah Creek is the only salmon bearing creek on Hornby Island, and it had the benefit of the ministry putting a like super skookum culvert at great cost just near the co-op for those who have been there. So we lobbied for that for a long time, and it happened. But now the problem is we have a huge amount of log debris at the mouth of Beulah Creek, which is right next. Or I'm just raising that because I don't know if we would be involved in an initiative like that, but I did commit to Conservancy and RMLA that we'd work together to try to enhance salmon in that area. I remember that I know it's a little bit out of scope, but just in case when you work around Little Trib, like if you see an opportunity for us to be involved, then don't hesitate to reach out to me or at least have the awareness. Thanks.
Well, I'd like to thank staff, of course, for all their fantastic work they've done, at least in the 15 years I've been elected regarding parks, because I always maintain that you only get one chance to buy some of this property. And when it's gone forever. And public access is so important. Public spaces are so important. So, I mean, we hobble along with just a budget paid for out of the electoral areas only, you know, and I think we've done very well. I would like to comment on Director Hardy's query on whether the parks can be comparable one to the other. And I would say that if you look at the extension of Clemmy's Trail there, which is the very southernmost part of the one spot trail before you hit KFN IR number 2, pretty much. You'll see that we had to get creative in some of these areas where when you go over Cessford Road, we had an unwilling property owner that wasn't ready to give us any of the property. And you have to realize, the public has to realize that we are very much at a disadvantage in the electoral areas, being that we are totally reliant on the Ministry of Transport for their right-of-ways, and they control the right-of-ways, and they control the ditches. And in some places, I think the road width was probably established back in the days when there was a one-horse surrey going one way and a 2-oxen cart going the other, because they're only about 10 meters wide, and then the ditches start. So we very little to play with. But if you go just over Cessford Road, you'll see that we actually sandbagged into the ditches to build up the trail, to extend it that little bit past the property. And if I remember correctly, after we did it, the property owner said, well, you know, I changed my mind. You can buy it off me now, but we didn't need it by then. So we have to be creative, and I think we've been creative. I'll put a plug in for Maris Nature Park, of course, for the planning process there, because there are some opportunities coming up where we might get some additional funding for the trailways, and especially the stairwell, or what do you call it, stairs down to the ocean. So, but that is all contingent on some of that planning happening in a timely manner. So I don't want to lay on the workload here, because I know it's substantial. Interesting that we issued 29 tickets for dogs off leash and got 24 paid. We have the compliance issue around off leash dogs is a major concern for the property owners, especially when you're trying to negotiate trailways adjacent or through their properties. So, obviously, we've had a couple of really bad cases of dogs doing real damage, both to livestock and to wildlife. So, it just takes one nincompoop with an off-leash dog to cause real havoc. So my question is, what is the fine for an off-leash dog? Is it $50? Is it $500? Sorry, Amanda, but it was on this line item, so I thought I'd bring it up.
It's $100. So for dogs off leash, both in our park and separate in our animal control bylaw, at large, say on the side of the road, or off owner's property, it's $100. So we left it at $100 throughout this year. Heavy presence in the parks with our summer resource, which was really wonderful. We had the same individual back that we had many years before when we ran it. So he was familiar with the parks, familiar with the areas outlined through park staff, through Mark and myself, that would be the areas to concentrate on. So that included sections of one spot where we have had reported incidents with livestock. Also Seal Bay, Goose Spit, Royston Seaside Trail. I'm probably forgetting a few, but we identified Ruth Masters. We identified quite a few based on the complaints that come in over the year. And that's where our bylaw for parks spent its time mostly. So those 29 tickets issued, I do know I reduced one to a warning, and the remaining ones that were not paid are going through collections. So we are still following up on.
Further to that, though, on the legal end of things, when an off-leash dog where an owner willingly and leaves the dog unleashed and the dog creates financial hardship for the farmer in killing or disabling production of some of the farm animals, we have no recourse to go back. What is the burden of proof to actually hold the owner of the dog responsible for the inculpable for the destruction that his animal creates? I know they get in their car and they take off right away, so it's almost impossible to catch them in the act. So it falls on us, is that right?
The burden of proof on a bylaw matter is beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's a high standard. So for an offense to occur, we need to know it's within our jurisdiction. So our park or property within an electoral area, the owner of the animal, the date, the time it occurred. So quite often we're not able to identify the dog owner or maybe even not clarify when exactly that offense occurred. So there's several aspects to proving an offense through provincial court. There's no, our bylaws do not speak to liability on damage done to a property, whether that be on livestock or on a human. That's typically dealt with civilly. So our bylaws speak just to the act of a dog being off leash or barking or not being picked up after in a park, but no, not to any damage done. So that's a separate action, not something that we can deal with through the animal control bylaw or the parks bylaw.
So then the property owner have to bring legal action against the regional district?
Typically what we see as a property owner, whether it be in cases I can think of, we've had FOI requests for our information, but we haven't been party to it, and it's on vet bills or maybe time off of work if it was a member of the public that was bit, and they're dealing with that civilly aside from us.
Because as I say, it's a very real concern. Any other comments on this report? Seeing none, call a question on receipt. Anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you, Mark. It was really good. So Craig, Derek, Community Playground Delegation Request is coming up under 8, report for receipt. Seconded. And over to staff.
And
Mark again.
back over to Mark, yeah, for this report responding to the delegation request.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you, James. To the directors. So we're here to respond to the delegation request that we investigate the development of a playground or a park type of area in the Craig Derrick community. So just in terms of background, early 2023, staff did meet out with the Craig Derrick residents out on site and talked about the potential for a community playground at Montrose Park. We did survey the Craig Derrick community to really get a better understanding of what their needs and what their asks are. And based on those surveys results, we did work on putting more beach access signs out in that neighborhood. And then we started to work with our engineering department on procuring a biophysical report for Montrose Park, so we could better understand whether it's how suitable that park is to take on park infrastructure. That biophysical report is still outstanding, and we're still kind of waiting on that. So at this time, staff are recommending that we continue to work on that inventory analysis for Montrose Park, and that we consider this park playground planning work as part of the 2025-2029 financial planning process. Happy to take questions.
Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks for that update. And it was good to have the delegation last time. And I think there's, I think the approach is good. Now, just to clarify, the analysis that's being done, is there like two streams to that analysis with and without a pump station on the same lot, or for the switch project? Like, how are we approaching that conundrum?
The analysis is really to look at the biophysical nature of the park in its completeness, and whether it can take on park infrastructure or not, and if it can, where could it take on infrastructure? So that infrastructure would be related to the park or to engineering.
And I guess the concern is it's pretty wet site, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if we run that, then we'll get a report sometimes in the next few months. If it shows that it's not a desirable site, then I could return to my thoughts from last meeting around potentially looking at the oh my goodness, I forgot the name of the road now. It's atypical for me, but
Argyle.
Yeah. Which definitely from a waterfront and great view from the swing set, that would be hard to beat anywhere in the regional district. But for now, I think I appreciate the update, and I'll look forward to that report, that physical report on Montrose. Thanks.
Director Hardy, any comments?
No comments at this time, Chair.
Thank you very much. So on receipt, anyone opposed? Seeing none, that carries, and then we have a recommendation. Seconded. Any discussion on the recommendation? Call a question on that. Anyone opposed? That also carries. Number 8. Fire Safety Act for receipt. And I guess you should introduce them, or can I introduce Bruce Green, Fire Chief of the Oyster River Fire Department, and much more.
Thank you. Through the CEO to the chair and the directors, the first report is about the Fire Safety Act. I'm sure you're all aware that the Fire Safety Act got approval back in 2016 without the regulations. The regulations got approved on August 1st. There's several concerns with the regulations that affect us. The biggest one that we have to address right now is the local assistant of fire commissioner program, who were doing investigations and inspections, has been discontinued, and it's up to the regional districts or the local governments to appoint inspectors. The other challenge that we have with that is improvement districts aren't classified as an authority having jurisdiction, so we have to go. We had discussions with Comox Fire Department, all the fire departments in the Comox Valley Regional District, about appointing inspectors, and they all agreed that the best way to do it is the fire chief or their designate be inspectors, which goes with all their bylaws. So that is what we're recommending. The other concern is that this has been downloaded, and right now the CBRD is not a compliance-based monitoring, we're just complaint-driven. And the OFC has stepped up and said that they will support us in doing the complaints if needed. Talking to some people in the OFC, they see that not continuing for a long time. But I think they can see us in a couple of years being a compliance-based monitoring entity. And that's where we're also suggesting that we write a letter to the government suggesting that we continue to receive the report that they are providing at this time for that program. And we will have to next year do a bylaw to support this appointment. It's just not there yet. With that, I open up to any questions.
Questions, Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. Quite aware of this file. I believe our previous CVRD chair spent 3 years on the provincial committee fighting against this downloading and unfunded downloading of responsibilities to us. It looks like it's still happening. So if we get a conservative government, we'll put that on the list of, repeal and reverse, or be fair and fund us. And if we get an NDP government, I think writing a letter to reassert how unfair this is to us and that we need appropriate resources to do this is in order. Now, my question is, when you talk about writing a letter, should we just wait a couple months to write that letter until we know which, the new government is in place? Because I realize we can write it to the administrators, like but I think with the new government comes new possibilities for discussion. There might be a new minister in that seat as well. So I'm just wondering on timing of, and I imagine the letter would come from the CVRD itself, right? Not from this committee.
Yes, I would recommend the letter come from the CVRD, and I never thought about the timing of the letter, but I think it would make sense to wait till after the election and to the minister and CC the minister plus OFC and everybody involved in it.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I'd be supportive of passing a recommendation with a letter maybe going in November after they've been confirmed and sworn in and addressed to the proper new minister responsible for this. This was a big fight for the UBCM committee, and our voice was never heard. And they were going to do this no matter what. And it's just not fair, especially to small places. And you mentioned improvement district, all the rest of it. Like, we're not prepared for that. This is additional funding, additional requirements. And I'm not sure what the value proposition is at the end. So very supportive of what you described today.
Yeah, once again, the senior government staff and elected officials are woefully unaware of how electoral areas work. Even though they created them, they have, you talk about being naive. Definitely. As I was saying at the Black Creek Oyster Bay, we had the same presentation, and this has been going on for quite a while at UBCM, trying to make the government realize that we just don't have the tools in our toolbox, much like everything else we have to deal with. And even senior staff don't really get the training in the ins and outs of electoral areas. And quite often they don't recognize, like they say, a bridge is opened in the Caribou and they phone the mayors from 100 miles around and leave the electoral area rep out of the opening ceremonies. Oh, what are you doing here? We've been to conferences in Quebec where we were a non-voting delegate because it said that we were directors. Well, directors aren't elected, are they? Even at the last UBCM at the electoral area lunch, we had a presentation by BC Housing that basically had no relevance at all to electoral areas because, oh, well, none of these policies actually apply to you guys. So we suffered through over half an hour of these minister staffers going on about what we can do with with housing, BC housing, and none of it applies to us. Somebody finally had to get up and say, well, you know that we're electoral areas here. This is an electoral area lunch. Oh, anyway, over the head. So I do think that as well as teaching civics in high school, which would be very helpful, they should actually make sure that outside of Rolly Russell, who's the electoral area secretary or something, that the elected officials have a crash course in what it's like to be in an electoral area representative and what powers we don't have. I don't want to go on forever, but I could. I always akin it to, please, sir, we need a 19 millimeter socket, deep socket, and with a 1/2 inch drive. Well, here, how about this rusty old vice grip? That'll do ya. That's a hardware joke. So I can see that we've got some people patiently waiting out there for the next report. So we're on receipt. Anybody opposed to receipt? That carries. And the recommendation attached? Moved and seconded on the recommendation. Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, Chair, if I could jump in quickly.
Certainly.
I'm just wondering if the letter that we put forward, if there's a need to put forward some type of a financial impact on the CVRD regarding this being passed down to the regional district. The costs.
I don't think that's necessary. I sit on the other job. I sit on the board for the FCABC, and Al is on that board, and the government is well aware of the costs that were going to be incurred to the regional district about this report.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Director Arbor?
Are we on the recommendation or we've moved receive?
We're on the recommendation.
Yeah, just to make sure that, and further that a letter be sent to the new minister and the Office of the Fire Commission be captured in the motion, just so we don't forget.
Duly noted. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to the recommendation? That carries. Thank you. And now Union Bay Fire Hall update. Move the second on receipt.
Through the CEO to the chair and the directors. As I'm sure you're all aware, we have been in the process of designing a new fire hall for Union Bay. Currently, the Union Bay Fire Hall is at its end of life. Through our design process, we got a Class D cost estimate come back that was $6.3 million. So we're here today to discuss that. And the other part of that is we need to get a board approval. And when we're looking at it, we staff believes the best way for us to get the voter approval is to go through the alternate approval process. Within the staff report is all the information, the financial implications that is the residents of Union Bay are going to incur to get this new fire hall to go forward. It is an asset. The fire hall is an asset to the community, keeps it protected. And also, I think in the design of the fire hall, we have included some community gym in there that the community access, because there is no community gyms down that way. So we're trying our best to, and the design is for all intents and purposes, a minimalist design to make it there. It's just the cost escalations that we've incurred over the since 2021 have been hard to handle. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
Director Arbor?
Great, thanks for your work on this. And I want to thank Chief Ham for hosting myself and a VIP a couple of weeks ago. So that was a really good tour of the fire hall. So thanks for that. Of the existing fire hall. Just give me 1 second. So yeah, I think people won't be too surprised about the cost escalation. That's the climate we're in. And as I recall from the report, we're looking basically currently with that price increase at a tax hit of about $300 per year, I believe, for the average home.
Yes.
So for me, that's, I think when we did Hornby Fire Hall, because it's smaller population, it was like 260 or 280 or something like that. So Union Bay would get a much bigger fire hall for the long term, 6, 7, 8 years later, on the cost per capita. So for me as elected representative, I have no problem going to Union Bay residents, talking about this. However, I'm just wondering if, I have a bit of a suggestion for today, which is I would like to add grant money to this project. And my thought process is I don't want to shock staff or board, but I probably will. I'm thinking that I would like to, at least for us to investigate decommissioning the community works funds that are currently assigned to the South Sewer project. And I could ask staff what that amount is and to put it towards the fire hall. I believe there might be $1 million or something from Area A money in there. Part of my rationale is the time value of money. You know, like we've been sitting on money and assigned to that project for a very long time. And right now it's also the same taxpayer at the end of the day. And I think if we can reduce the burden on a project that is going to move forward in the next few months, I would like to see if we could do that. And then if and when South Sewer proceeds, we could assign new community works fund to that project now that we have a 10-year agreement that has been renewed through UBCM. So, and if it doesn't happen, then we've actually reduced the burden in the short term and made that project even more compelling to Union Bay residents. So I'm wondering if staff could just talk about, and that's probably not Bruce, but if we could have just a little bit of information as to what could be considered in the next month or so to look at that opportunity, because I realize that you're starting to move towards the AP process and I don't want to delay that. I'm just wondering what would be involved if we wanted to do something like this.
I would think you just threw a rusty old vice grip into the works.
Well, I think actually I see that Lucy Wichark, our Chief Financial Officer, and Kelly Broughton, our Manager of Financial Planning, have both come to the table. So I think, Lucy, I'll ask if you have an initial response to this. And it's certainly not something we've layered into this report or done any analysis on. So these may be very preliminary discussions or comments, but Lucy?
Malfunction. Try the other one. Reset it. Reset it. I was doing that earlier today.
Why don't you come sit here and use my mic?
Go to the podium. Okay.
If it works.
It's working.
Is it? Oh, yeah, it is.
I'll go there and they can have your spot back.
So through the chair to the directors and yes, as the CAO has mentioned, we haven't considered this for the report, but I thought maybe I could just provide some initial information here and then see where you want to go. So just stop giving it a little bit of thought. So first of all, I think what I wanted to let you know, as was mentioned already, we just finished a 10-year contract in 2024. We do have a new contract for community works funds starting with this year. The allocation for 2024-2025 was almost $1.2 million. So we have those funds. Also wanted to let you know that from the last contract for 2024, there's about $400,000 that still remains there. That's unfunded, that has not been allocated out. No, and this is globally. This is across for the whole contract is what I'm saying now. We have 400 and somewhat thousand dollars that was left from 2024 from the last 10-year contract. Going into this fiscal year, you have $1.2 million that has come into the fray as well. Available to the end of to 2024 right now is about $1.5 million. That's not allocated out. And there's nothing as well stopping the committee from also pre-allocating to your future funds as well. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of the dollars that were there. From a Sewer South project perspective, I believe I have this right, and Kelly will correct me if I'm wrong, or Jared, but $1.5 million was allocated to that project. There has been some expenditures that have occurred. There's $1,720,000 remaining there that's still committed to this project at this time. From a I guess just a little bit of, I'm not sure what the implications would be to that project right now. You're all aware of the stage of that project. So if you go to the place of reallocating these dollars away from the Sewer South project and to the Union Bay Fire Hall, makes me just a tiny bit nervous of what may be the complications to the situation that's happening there right now. And of course, we've used those dollars to do all of our projections forward on what the implications are to the taxpayer. So I guess in saying that is there's dollars, they are available in your community works funds. It is an option to remove from South service and move it, maybe a bit of caution around there. But also just want to make you aware that if you do want to apply further grant dollars, great place, as you know, I advocate for using community works dollars in order to apply to things like fire hall infrastructure. The funds are there.
I can have a follow-up. This committee fought last term to have, with others in the province, fire halls added to the community works funds eligible expenditures for rural areas. So that opportunity is now before us, which is great. Than used to be. Yeah, that's good. The only small distinction I would make, and I realize, thank you first of all for coming up with the information. I would say I still treat those different amounts as, some are historically, and I still believe in that, to first allocate those funds to Area B, Area C, Area A, Hornby and Denman, each in their different pots. So I realized the global figure. Also, I want to acknowledge that both Area B and Area C have put some community works funds in the South Switch project, which really allowed us to take it to where it is today. So maybe what would be a next step? Could I ask if by the time we get the next budget, so perhaps at the next meeting for the Union Bay Fire Hall, if staff could render a couple of options, either of utilizing South Sewer or Area A community works funds. I don't want to have Area B and Area C. They have their own needs over there. They've already been very generous. But for Area A to look at a combination that could add $1 to $1.5 million to the fire hall project, including potentially a mixture of reallocation and of new monies. The monies on South Sewer, that project's probably set for 2027 and thereafter if it happens. And I think there'll be plenty of opportunity to replenish those funds. But as we go to an AEP in Union Bay and to try to show residents that we are doing everything to minimize the cost increases that they're experiencing today, I think that would be very great. It might bring down, the cost per resident to, instead of $300, maybe $200, who knows? So would that be feasible by the next time this report comes back around?
So for the next meeting in November, just bring back those couple of scenarios. We can do that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And my last comment on this item is I agree with the staff recommendation that we should go to this when the time is right. I like the schedule as well to go to AAP. If there's a failure in the AAP, we can always go to referendum thereafter, right? And so we've had some surprises around AAP. I think there's broad support Union Bay has been expecting a new fire hall for 15 or 20 years. Even if we don't add those additional grants, I think the residents are likely to be supportive. But if we can bring it down further, then they'll see that we're really going to work for them. So let's be aggressive on the schedule. I would love to see that fire hall get underway in 2025. Because you never know how the world goes, right? This project has been delayed a couple times, and I say let's put the foot on the pedal and make it happen. Dare to Grieve knows precisely what I mean when I say fire halls can can take a little longer sometimes. But this one, we have an early design. We've had input from the fire department. The community has been talking about new fire hall. We just got the property from Union Bay Estates. The stars are aligned for this project to get built. So thank you to staff for the work on this.
So I'm going to turn to the CAO. How best to bring us forward as a resolution? Did you want to defer the recommendation back and then or support some of the recommendation now? Because it does change the figures, right?
Mr. Chair, yes, absolutely. The proposed loan authorization bylaw would be changed as a result of this if there was different revenue sources, if there was potential for bringing in other grant funding. So unless staff correct me otherwise, I think this would be a referral motion to provide the couple of analyses that Director Arbor mentioned. I'm just looking to Lucy and Kelly for timing, that you do have the wherewithal, knowing you're going into our fairly heavy season with regard to budget deliberations, not wanting to stretch the finance team too short. But unless I'm corrected, I see this being a referral motion to staff to undertake that couple of bits of analysis to come back with some options there. And then you're right, Mr. Chair, that would be
the cleanest process.
The dollar figures in the resolution. So there'd be no need to pass the recommendation today. We would bring that back in a subsequent report.
We have direction to staff. Bring it back. Are you okay with that, Director?
Unless I'll just throw that out there. The loan authorization bylaw is an up to, right? Or is it like when we do this, could we actually pass? I don't want to slow down the process either if there's an opportunity not to slow it down. So what I mean is, if we're looking for a loan authorization bylaw up to, I forget the number, I think it's 2 million. Then maybe we don't use it all if those community works funds get added to it. Does that make sense? Or am I missing a piece there in terms of what we need to send to the financial borrowing?
The loan authorization bylaw would be for, I believe it's a 3.955 million.
Sorry, yes.
And when we submit that to the inspector and then go to the voters, it would be for that amount.
Right.
You're right, we don't have to borrow that much if we can supplement with other financing. However, that is what we would be asking the public to vote on. So it would be up to that 3.955 number.
So in that case, does staff see any issue with waiting a month until we have an analysis? If on the other side of that, we might get an extra 1 or 1.5 million for the firewall? I don't see staff's concerns.
Sure, Lucy. Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm just hearing two things. Your desire that you like the schedule, how it's laid out, and to continue moving forward with that. And Kelly can weigh in if she would like from an applying grant perspective and rerunning figures. I'm not seeing that piece as we can do that with relative short order in order to be able to come back to this table and say, with an additional amount of grant in these amounts, then this is what this is what your new figures are going to be. What I was conscious of is the slated timeline here around the AAP process. And I think just hitting our next meeting, I think we still should be okay in order to be able to still remain with going out with AAP into the January timeframe. So I think we can do this bit of work. Maybe have some conversations of staff around the implications as well around redirecting funds that have been set already for the self-sewer project.
Yep.
We can come back to your community works funds a little bit to just see if there's anything else that we see. So as an alternative, you could at this table assign grant dollars to this project and a further grant dollars to this project, and we can move forward.
Today?
Yeah, that's one option.
Oh.
Where maybe I probably on the top of my mind, it's the self-sewer piece where I do think probably from a staff perspective, we have the time, likely better if we come back next month and provide you with a further report if that seems okay.
Yeah, I would love to do it today because then it's really, but at the same time, just being a bit of due diligence, I would just be throwing numbers out for fun. So, which is fun, but maybe not the most diligent thing. So what I would say is let's take that month as a referral and to see if you can layer in 1 to 1.5 of those grants, either fresh and or taking from the South Sewer project for now. And then we can reconsider next month and then try to move to AEP for January. I would like to say, is there any thought, because as of today, this is now public information that we are heading this way. If this was Hornby Island, like they'd already be calling us. I don't see calls from Union Bay yet, but people will pay attention pretty quickly. What is the plan for starting to show the community? Because even this committee has not had a full overview of the design and all the rest of that. And when we're looking at a $6 million project, I would anticipate a need very shortly to be able to present the concept both to the committee and to the community. So that's a little bit in the timetable, but anything we might be able to see next month or something like that?
So the directors do have an upcoming open house in November, I believe, and we're working with the consultants to design and have stuff ready for that.
Oh, great.
I've already talked to Chief Ham about, like he just did his open house, about having another open house at the fire hall in the not too distant future to let the residents know what the figures are and what the designs are.
That's great. I also separately have a town hall at Union Bay Hall on November 7th. So if you're thinking of our open house for the Electoral Area Services Committee, then that's before that. So I might be able to use some of the materials from my town hall, or at least the information from my town hall as well.
And I would be happy to attend that meeting to discuss with residents.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Well, wonderful. I'm really excited. I think ever since 2018, when I got elected, I heard that the fire hall was a priority in Union Bay, and that was supported by all sides of Union Bay. Everybody, it's really something that people agree on. So 6 years later, here we are. Let's go. Thanks.
Well, let's get receipt out of the way. Anybody opposed to receipt? That carries. Hang on. It's a referral, right? Yeah.
So I'd like to refer to staff to bring back this report next month with a layering of an additional 1 to 1.5 million from Community Works funds as option.
Any discussion, Director Hardy? We're good? So we got that captured and look forward to next month. On the deferral, any opposed? That carries. I now want to propose that we grab a sandwich before the blood sugar starts to run out. It's 12:30, so if we can do a working lunch, take 20 minutes or so to get set up and work through our lunch. Oh, and a shout out to Chief Ian Ham for being here. Thank you very much.
He is there. He's just doing lunch. So go ahead.
This is Major Tom to ground control. You there, Richard? Yeah, there
I'm
he
here,
is. I
Major.
see him.
I'm here, Major Tom. Eat my lunch.
Okay. I'm gonna call this meeting back to order. We're now on number 11, Graham Lake Water Local Service Bylaw Amendments for receipt. Moving second on receipt and over to CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Lisa Dennis, our Manager of Legislative Services, will be introducing this staff report on the amendment to the Graham Lake Water Local Service Bylaw. Lisa.
Thank you. So through the CAO and the chair to the directors. So this is a report to remove a piece of property from the Graham Lake Water Service. And if you'll recall, last month we did a merge the Graham Lake Water Service and the Denman Island Water Service. And during that process, it was noticed that there was one property that should not have been included in the merger. This was an error. So this is in service of correcting that error. So just taking this property back out that had been removed through petition back in 2019, I believe. You have any questions?
Director Harbour.
Yeah, thanks. Just correcting administrative thing. So I'm in favor.
Any other comments from directors?
No comments here, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question on receipt. All in favor? Gotcha. And that carries a recommendation. I'll second it. No more discussion on the recommendation. I'll call a question on it. Anybody opposed? And that carries. Number 12, water restriction dashboard, just for receipt, but it's worth looking at. Second. Any comments on the dashboard? Okay, on receipt, anyone opposed? That carries. Now, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Rural Area Advocacy, as you probably know, because we're in the middle, we're getting near the very end of a BC election. We are probably not going to have any representation from the ministry here, as was planned next month. But I'm going to turn this over to CAO. Might be worth taking a look at this, and maybe we can come up with a strategy.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So this topic has come up a couple of times through the Electoral Area Services Committee after strategic planning, and also most recently in response to the delegation that spoke to the Buckley Bay Mystery Beach Highway 19A speed concerns. Staff have been recording complaints and comments from the public for some time on matters that do relate to the Ministry of Transportation's responsibilities. And in some discussions with the ministry, they've indicated that where there are one or two items coming from an electoral area or a series of electoral areas, where there are one or two items, it may be something that the ministry can act on. Where there are 13 items or more, it's harder for the ministry to act on these matters. And so staff were wondering or suggesting that if we brought forward the range of topics that have come before either the electoral area directors individually or at the EASC, the directors may want to consider prioritizing these various concerns. They are in no particular order, although I will note number 4 here has probably received the most attention in terms of commentary from members of the public. And if the electoral area directors were interested in prioritizing or narrowing down onto 1 or 2 or 3 of these topic areas, and that be the focus of your discussions with Ministry of Transportation, that may get some more traction with the ministry. And so, so Mr. Chair, we can circulate this list to you as the EA directors, and we can bring this back to a subsequent meeting for further consideration on prioritization. Or if you want to have the conversation now, here and today, that would be fine. Of course, if there are other topics that you'd want to add to this list, if we've missed any or you've heard of other comments from the public, we can add that to the list here as well. So if you would prefer, we can simply email this out to the EA directors and then we can bring this back to a subsequent agenda.
Well, I don't know, directors, can we pick a one each or something like that? If we're gonna bring some forward, yeah, I mean, obviously, they're not gonna react on 13 different issues, so. What do you think, Richard? Should we just take a look at this and digest it and bring it back next month?
I think that would be best. I know Wireless Road and Lloyd Road are two very, very important issues that I keep getting queried about all the time. And again, with regards to, yeah, even Hawkins Road with regards to a concrete barrier at the bottom of that hill going down towards the spit. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when somebody's gonna, on a icy day, because Modi doesn't go down and salt that road. It's just a matter of time before somebody from CFB Comox ends up in that water there at the spit. So, you know, those are the three big key ones for me are Hawkins Road, Lloyd Road, and Wireless Road.
Dr. Harbour?
Yeah, thanks. I think I would combine if I don't have a lot on this list, but maybe it's because there's groups in Fanny Bay, Buckley Bay, Union Bay, Royston. It's all Highway 19A, you know, concerns around and not only just concerns, but I think future opportunity and how we look at that. Did you know that in Union Bay, like there's no safe place across the road? Like that's just stupid. Like, you know, people, there's no, you have to wait and traffic is always going there. So, so maybe I would reframe my whole questioning around a Highway 19A South and south of Courtney, long-term strategy so that we stop going piecemeal by piecemeal with Ministry of Transportation and almost like if we could work with them on what does future state look like, right? Right now you get in South Courtney and you had 60 clicks and then for some reason you hit my area for like 2 kilometers and it goes to 80 and it goes back to 60 and it's been like piecemeal work here and there's no, and perhaps that will also give me the opportunity to think through the active transportation component of all that. And so safe crossings, speeds, a comprehensive view at Highway 19A. Because I've been for 6 years, I keep coming up, oh, this group wants this over there, this group wants that over there, right? I think it could be worthwhile to say, how do we design a route that's like safer and also more accessible? Another example is just past the Trent River. Well, coming into Royston, I've been asking for 5 years for a collaboration for just the same thing as Cumberland, a speed sign, but nothing happened. Like mostly nothing happens, but I think maybe going to that higher level view maybe could help. And I'm not suggesting that we would do the work. I would like to see the ministry do that work. What's the future state? Or they might say, well, we're happy with what we have, but the next time we have somebody dead, then we'll remind them that maybe a long-term strategy is good.
Well, there's been fatalities, so for sure 19 is the big one. Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I guess what I would also maybe suggest is that we get Modi to maybe spend an afternoon with the committee and look at these sites and maybe they'd have a better understanding of what's being asked from them. I think it's easy to say, well, with regards to Lloyd Road, there's only 15 people that live on that road, but you know, the next southeasterly storm when it's blowing 90 clicks and trees get blown down on that road and nobody can get in or get out, then what are we doing? So I think sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I really think that if we could get a road trip with Modi to kind of look at some of these sites, maybe they would put more of a priority on them than what they are right now. Those are just my thoughts. Thanks.
I will say that there was a time when that happened in every year that one of the local staff, mind you, would take one director, usually one at a time, because we can't be joined up any more than one person or we're a quorum, but they would drive around in your electoral area and show you some of the things, and you can show them some of the things that we're concerned. Might be something else, but we're expecting what, Michael Pearson at this? So it'd be higher up the food chain than the local.
Yeah, no, I think often it's Kellen Truant, our.
It's Kellen, okay, well, Kellen's great.
local Officer, and I
Kellen could
believe.
probably arrange that. As, maybe we could have arrange a couple of road trips individually with Kellen. And then when we get together for the discussion, as I say, we won't be able to do it till the dust is settled from the election as well. So we're probably looking at December or even January before we can have them at this table. So we do have a big in camera. Do we want to just?
I like the idea, Chair, of us being able to go for a quick 2-hour or 1-hour drive with Kellen or Mike or whoever it's going to be on an individual basis and say, here are the priorities for area B, here's the priorities for A, here's the priorities for C. And then, like you said, when we do get together with them formally, then, you know, we can say, here are the priorities and everybody's on the same page and here's why. And again, like I said, I get and understand this isn't CVRD stuff, this is Modi stuff. But again, if our constituents are coming to us day in and day out expressing concerns and issues here, then my opinion is we do have an obligation to go and meet with Modi and try and resolve these issues. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Dr. Arbor?
Yeah, I support with the other directors. I don't think I'll go personally with Modi on the tour, but I would add one more item to this list in case the list comes up. And it's one that's even if we made a little bit of progress on that with Moti, that would be great. As we're nearing completion of the Cross Island Trail and Denman Island, residents have been aware of the perennial problem around Denman Hill. And there's been past studies, like maybe Doug was around for that 10, 15 years ago. But what I've learned from the culvert replacement on Hornby is sometimes just to have something situated, even though it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes they have leftover budget or whatever, which I think is what happened, or maybe not, but I was so impressed that the culvert got done over Beulah Creek on Hornby. And so if we could refresh with Moti the long-term solution around Denman Hill so that it's safe for bikes and pedestrians, because right now we've got this $1 million+ investment in the Cross Island Trail. But because we selected that route, you know, there's a bit of an issue as you get to Denman Hill, and not only for cars and not only for pedestrians, but for cars. Every winter, that thing turns into an ice rink, and they've had the school bus multiple times stuck on the hill, cars stuck on the hill, accidents on the hill. So I would just add that one to the list. Thanks.
Why don't we just receive it at this point and move into the in camera? Because we do have a big in camera. So on receipt, anyone opposed? Then that carries. Now the comments, the TUP, that's about it. So a motion to do you want to bring that up as right now? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, good idea. We'll turn over to CEO.
So from the 2 delegations that were presented this morning, I think the directors had interest in passing 2 separate resolutions to report back on those 2 matters. Dr. Arbor. I think Director Arbor's got a.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, so on the new business, the first resolution is that staff work on a staff report to address the proposal from the McCallie Road Resident Association around the connection through One Spot Trail and report back to this committee. Did you want to put on a date on that, Director Grieve, or?
I think the report would come back to speak to the Macaulay Road and area
Residents.
Neighbors Association,
Yeah,
Marana,
neighbors.
and their request around the emergency access and the completing the one spot trail. So we can report on that. Yeah.
On options,
For-
yeah, to proceed, yeah.
Some of this may come back in both meetings.
Okay. Seconder?
So we have two motions. The first one. Do we
I
have
need
it
a
after?
seconder.
The seconder, I'll second it. That's good. We don't need to repeat it. Okay, fine. So now a motion to adjourn to in camera.
No, all in favor. We haven't voted, and then there's
Alright.
one more.
Okay. Anybody opposed?
Nope.
That carries. That's for both resolutions.
I have
or
a
the other one
second
too?
resolution,
With what?
a second new business resolution.
Yeah, okay, to make that official.
That CVRD staff bring back options around the Tappan Street residents' request to address encroachment in a collaborative manner.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay. We have it on the screen then? That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody opposed? That carries as well.
Move to go in camera.
Right back.